welcome to our podcast on Aviation Talk, Arvind. It's been a while that I've seen you. I am happy that you're doing well and you're still becoming a pilot. So tell me, like, what made you become a pilot? Like, why are you in the training process of it?
Well, Gabe, I just want to thank you for having me on your podcast today. And that's a great question. That's honestly something I never thought about until like much later down the road than most people, because most guys I talk to, like even all my friends, they wanted to be a pilot from the time they were a small kid. I was never like that. I mean, I always had a great interest in aviation. I think the one thing that sparked my interest was being in Brampton. I lived in Brampton most of my life, and just being north of Pearson Airport, I saw the planes flying over my house all the time. So it was always like a almost like an eye opener, like saying like, wow, how does this giant aircraft fly through the air so smoothly and so efficiently, and not have any problems, and just like seeing something so incredible like a car is something that we see every day, but a plane in the air, like especially like a giant like Airbus A380 or even like the Antonov flying into Pearson, that's something that really opens your eyes for sure. So
Hmm.
that kind of made me want to become a pilot, probably from the age of 14. It was pretty late. I didn't really think about it too much until I became a teenager. And even in high school, I didn't really know that I was going to go into aviation. I just always had that passion for like just being in a plane, seeing planes all the time. I never thought of it as a career, probably until I started applying for schools and stuff like that. So probably in about grade 10, I was looking at where am I going to apply to for school, right? And I always thought engineering was going to be the thing for me. And obviously that didn't happen. I ended up applying to the science and aviation program at the University of Waterloo. And as I got in, I didn't know too much about the industry until after getting into the program, and I was doing all my research, and I was like, wow, this is a pretty interesting industry. There's so many options, like not just being a pilot. There's so many jobs and so many different things in the management, aviation, and corporate. There's so many different opportunities that I could have done or can still do, right?
Hmm.
So that was one of the greatest things that made me want to become a pilot. Is that there's not just one route for you to go. Like you can go many different routes, right?
Hmm. So, like, have you decided kind of like what route you want to take, or it's kind of like wherever it takes you kind of thing?
Kind of, yeah. I don't want to set like any precedent for it. I just want to see like how it goes, and obviously I would like to fly commercially for a commercial airline at some point in my career. And
Hmm.
I mean, who knows if I go into management after that, or even into airport operations. I wouldn't mind that job at all. It seems like a pretty cool, pretty interesting thing, just having to deal with the amount of planes coming in, especially to like a busy airport like Pearson or even the Island Airport in Toronto. It seems like a pretty cool thing to have to wake up and know that that's your job, right?
Yeah,
So just
exactly. Yeah.
like as you know, being in the aviation industry, that's like just waking up and seeing like, oh, I actually have a job that I'm excited to go to. I think that was the main spark for me and wanting to be in this industry.
Hmm. And like, what license do you have right now in your piloting training?
Right, so I'm just wrapping up my PPL training. So I'm basically just about to do my PPL flight test. I started at the program at U Waterloo, but I eventually just stuck with the science degree, and then I left the flying for a bit afterwards. I just didn't want to have to balance so much on my plate at the same time. It was hard enough doing a degree program as well as flying outside of that. So I kind of split it up. So I finished my science degree in 2019. So after I graduated, that's when I got more into the flying, and then I was able to fully take on like the private pilot's license and all the training that it required. So I'm basically just about to do the flight test. So that's the my next step for now, and then after that
Right.
will be the night reading and then CPL.
Oh, okay, nice, nice.
Yeah,
How about the IFR and everything? Are you planning on getting that before the CPL as well, or after?
I'd probably do that after the CPL just so that I have that experience with like all the night reading
Okay.
and CPL. I just want to get those hours out of the way first, and then I can do like the multi IFR and training, and then even see where that takes me for job wise and
Nice.
I'm yeah. So after that, I probably would like to be an instructor at some point. just so I can get the experience of teaching someone, because I always believe that having to teach someone is the greatest thing, just because it keeps you on your toes. It keeps all of your knowledge fresh, because you're always
Mhm.
teaching it to someone new, right? So I think that's the best way to kind of learn more about being a pilot, and also being in the right seat as opposed to the left seat. I
Yeah.
think that's something that, as a new pilot, is pretty valuable.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, actually, if you watch the previous episode, I think I just posted today, about like my instructor. He talks about, like, the duties behind being an instructor and why he chose becoming an instructor and all that kind of stuff. So it's actually pretty cool to hear his story and stuff. And you kind of get into situations, right? Like, when you're instructing students and you're always flying in the air, right? So, like, we were talking about like some failures we've had on a plane. I don't know if you've ever had any failures on the plane yet, or,
I,
well,
I
knock
actually
on
have,
wood.
yeah, I definitely have.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, like the one thing like that probably freaked me out the most was when I was doing a circuit. I was landing. I was in the rollout. I had touchdown, and I was going back up. I was just doing I was
Touch
going
and
back
go.
up for like one more circuit, right? And it was on my last one, and I was putting up the flaps, and I put the flaps up, but then I was looking at the flaps on the outside, and guess what? They weren't going up. So I had to overshoot the takeoff. I just had to abort takeoff at that point, and I had to tell ATC. I'm like, hey man, like these flaps aren't staying up, so I had to just
Yeah.
exit off the runway at that point. I mean, it was pretty scary, because had I not even looked out to see if the flaps had gone up, I
Hmm.
would have been doing a takeoff with 30 degrees flaps in a Cessna, and that's
Yeah.
definitely dangerous, right? That's
No.
caused some pretty serious accidents.
Hmm.
And so I think just having that awareness during a failure is the most important thing. It's the key, right? To see if you're going to get out of this failure or not, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, on my second flight, I was flying with Anton, and my flaps actually failed at 10 degrees. But we were in the air, so we had to come back to Brampton, and we landed with 10 degrees of flaps. That
Right.
was the first time I experienced a forward slip, which was,
The fourth slip, yeah.
yeah, quite intense. But, like, yeah, you're right. Like, it does teach you a valuable lesson on, flying, because, like, okay, sure, it wasn't like an engine failure in the sky. Like, thank God, you didn't do the rotation on
Of
takeoff
course.
again,
Yeah.
takeoff. But uh, it does put you in a position where you have to kind of like problem solve at that point. You gotta be cool. You can't start freaking out, right? And I think that's what makes a good pilot a good pilot. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, no, that's actually that's pretty intense. Like, I hope that never happens to me either. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, but we're trained for that kind of stuff. Have you trained doing like the engine failures and stuff
Yeah, that's a huge
in the
part of the
circuits?
PPL training. Like they make sure that you know your like all your checklists by heart. That's something that I know for sure in private pilot training. They don't want you to be slacking on is your engine failure, and even just having any hazards in the cockpit. Um, you should know how to like use the checklist to your advantage, and follow those steps, and you will help yourself get out of that situation.
Yeah,
That's definitely like even having a fire in the cockpit, having radio failures, stuff like that, like stuff that could make you really panic in the air if you're not prepared for it, right?
exactly. But
So
that's what
that's definitely a big part of training.
exactly.
I've witnessed for sure.
Yeah. What do you see yourself flying in the future? Like, do you want to fly? Are you a Boeing or an Airbus fan?
So I'll tell you something about myself. I was never really into either one type of plane, or I was never a plane expert of any sort. I'm the furthest thing from it. Um, I was more into how does this plane fly. So honestly, any
Okay.
plane that I think is um, top of the line, it'd be nice to fly. I mean, like obviously the Airbus A380 is nice, or the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, all those things. It's just it'd be great to fly, obviously, but I would also love to fly something that's less complicated, like a Dash 8, or just something that kind of teaches you like how to fly without having so much technology on board.
Okay.
It's something that I would definitely enjoy for sure. Like especially like in the earlier stages of my career, I would not say no to either one. You know.
Yeah, of course. Right now we're in Cessnas, but
Right.
yeah, no, I get what you mean, right?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of want to know the basics of it, and you want to feel the plane yourself, right, and
Right.
not make a computer kind of land it. I get it.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. Um, so are you prepared to land do your night rating? Like, are you nervous? Do you know what to expect when you do your night flying?
It's definitely something I've been thinking about a lot more, and now that I'm just wrapping up my PPL, I'm like, oh, the next step is flying at night, and that's something I mean, I have been a passenger of, but I've never actually been a part of that flight, and like in the actual cockpit, and it's something I've been up with friends about, and like I've seen my own friends do it, so it's great to see like how things work so differently at night because you don't really have a visual of the ground, right? It's just everything's pitch black. You just have some lights helping you out, and then you have ATC.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah.
that's really all you can use to basically to navigate at night, and it's honestly it seems much more calming to me for some reason, just because I feel like the air is smoother at night. Um,
Mhm.
and it is proven that like it doesn't have as much turbulence, like, and the winds are a lot more calm at nighttime. So I think it'd be great to fly at night. I mean, even get a few hours in that, and it definitely is something I would enjoy for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I've flown not at night, of course, but I've flown like when the sun was rising.
Yeah,
And yeah, like it's very calm already, just because the thermals aren't really kicking in, or there are.
right.
It's very calm. So just imagining, you know, what it is like to fly at night. Sure, you can't really. The visibility's like much lower, but
Yeah.
I could definitely see it being a very smooth flight. Um, as far as your first solo goes, right? So tell us a little bit about that. Like, how was your experience as a pilot flying for the very first time? Did your instructor jump out of the plane and say, "Okay, now go and fly again
Yeah.
by yourself," or how did that
Yeah, so
work?
basically, how that went, I was pretty far into my training actually, until I did my first solo. So had my instructor at the time, and his name was Alex, Alex Harville. He's currently flying for WestJet, I believe.
Okay.
Um, he took me up for a couple circuits just to make sure that I was okay doing all the landing and approaches on my own. He did not touch any of the controls at all. And then once he saw I was ready, he after we landed that second time, um, I taxied to the apron. He dropped off. He's like, "Okay, buddy, you're on your own."
Yeah.
And that's probably like the most nerve-wracking it's been for me in my entire flight training so far.
Mhm.
Just hearing that you're on your own. This is all you now, right? This plane is all yours, and there's no one else to help you out in the case of anything going wrong, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, like as a pilot, like you tend to like think of the worst case scenario sometimes, and that's something that comes natural to me, right? I'm always thinking of the worst case, like what could possibly happen, and so I guess it does help out a bit in how prepared you are to fly the plane. But after he hopped out that time, I taxied back to the runway. I called up ATC in Waterloo, and um, uh, I did it, and he did tell me that the landing would be a lot more different because of the weight in the plane and us flying a Cessna.
Mhm.
Like our like taking a whole person out of the plane affects how you land in the rollout and the flare. It's a
Mhm.
much different perspective that you see in the cockpit. So the one thing I realized is that um, the Cessna, like it's a 172S model I'm flying, um, it took a long time in the flare to actually touch down. Like it's that weight being taken off. It just didn't want to
Mhm.
land as it was just floating.
Mhm.
So I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is something that, and I probably bounced on the landing for sure, just because I wasn't expecting like that type of flare and touch. So it was definitely something for sure. Yeah, but it was great. It was a great experience, and then I went up and did it a few more times, and I was a lot more comfortable after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's all part of the training, right? But yeah, because
exactly.
I'm gonna be doing my solo pretty soon. I think. I
Nice.
just got my
Pretty cool.
medical. I just got to write my radio exam, and then yeah, two more flights basically, just to kind of get back into it because of the whole COVID
Of
situation,
course.
not being able to fly and bad weather we're having. Yeah, so I've been kind of just trying to figure out, you know, what it's like. Right, then I'm sure my viewers would also want to know, the feeling of hopping in the plane for the first time by yourself and you know, taking it out. Right?
Are you flying the 172 right now?
Yeah, I'm flying the 172S.
S. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
or the R, one of
Oh,
the
the
two.
R.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Very cool. Yeah.
yeah, it's all good. I don't know if I want to fly one with the carburetor yet because I've heard some horror stories in ground school.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about that. But yeah, so last minute remarks and stuff, or just wrapping up here. Do you have anything to say to the viewers watching, like, younger kids, adults who are thinking of, becoming pilots and trying to get into, like, they don't know if they want to fly yet, they don't know if they want to become a pilot, uh, but do you have anything to say to them, like, regarding, like, should it, if, how to go about it?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is do that intro flight. See if you do like flying in small planes. That's something that I had never had the experience of until I did my first intro flight just prior to the start of my training. I had never been in a small plane before, so it was something that it did take some time to get adjusted to. And but once you can handle that turbulence, it's something that it feels nice to be in the air. And if you have a similar passion in flying or even just in planes in general, and that's something that you see yourself doing as a career or even as a hobby, um, it's a great field. It's something that kind of frees your mind at some points. It like just being in the sky and just being all alone up there. It's nice. It's calming sometimes. As much as it is a bit scary sometimes, it can also be very calming if you know exactly what you're doing. If you're prepared to do landings, approaches, all those things. That's something that after a while it becomes a lot more calming. And if you genuinely have that passion, I would definitely get into it because even though the industry is taking a bit of a hit right now, and we know that it'll take a bit of a while to recover, probably about 2 3 years, who knows, right?
Hmm.
But it will have that boom again. People will want to travel, and even if you just want to do it as a hobby, it's something that's great for anyone. If you have the extra money to spare, I mean, it is something that you have to take into account is the financial aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
It's a huge part of flight training, and obviously having the funds is one thing. So if you have the funds to spare, it's something I would definitely just do the intro flight and do a few lessons first and see if you genuinely like it. And if you do like it, then I'm sure it'll take you anywhere that you want to go, right?
Exactly. No, I
Yeah.
agree completely. Well, Arvin, thank you very much for being a part of this aviation talk.